Everyone knows we should be taking responsibility, but the better question is how? How do you do that in practice? Well, did you know that there's actually step-by-step process to do that? And there are different stages that we need to avoid in order to take responsibility. Well, that's what I'm going to cover in this video. Hit a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. The responsibility process, unlocking your natural ability to live and lead with power by Christopher Avery. So what's in this book? So let's do a quick summary. So personal responsibility means our conceptions of cause and effect and the debate between free choice and determinism. So what we believe about others in general and about ourselves in particular is continually put to the test by our willingness to accept or reject personal responsibility. So control the tail, not the wind. What does it mean? So responsibility is the ability to respond. So response ability. So even though what happens to us isn't always in our control, we can always decide how to react. So Epictetus said that it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. And personally, I would say that it's really spot on. So as a business owner, there's all the time different things happening, and you make some plans, and then something completely game-changing happens when your plan pretty much goes out of the window. So it's a good question that, okay, are you going to adapt to it, or are you just gonna be sticking to your plan and keep complaining? So it's all about how we react. So perceptions of cause and effect. So when we talk about who is responsible for something, we are usually inferring cause and effect. So responsibility is talked about when things go wrong. I mean, when things go well, nobody is usually saying like, okay, who did this to me? Who made me so happy? Who made this project so successful? But when things go wrong, our minds desperately seek to assign cause, so also known attribution. So attribution is the mental perception of cause and effect. So responsible people are conscious of their responsibilities. They come to the realization that by being conscious of, reflecting on, and constantly enhancing their own attributions of cause and effect, they make greater ownership of their life, work, and relationships. So, okay, we have established that it's all about how we respond that actually counts. So efficacy is the power to produce an effect. It's usually called competence, or the ability to produce a result. So self-efficacy is the degree to which we believe we are competent. So if we have high self-efficacy, it means that we see challenges as opportunities to gain new mastery, and it's to engage more deeply in activities and bounce back more rapidly from setbacks. Then again, if we have low self-efficacy, then we avoid challenges, we emphasize personal failings, and we have little confidence in our ability. So it goes pretty much like without saying that we want to increase our self-efficacy, right? Like when we take a look at these two things, like especially if we are entrepreneur and business owner, we want to take on challenges. I mean, we cannot be a business owner and avoid challenges and emphasize our personal failings and have little confidence in our abilities, because if we do have this, like maybe it's like subconsciously, then it doesn't gonna do well for our business, right? So how can we actually develop this self-efficacy? So mastering something is the most critical factor in determining this self-efficacy. So failure experiences lower self-efficacy, and success experience raise self-efficacy. So social modeling is that, okay, I mean, if they can do it, I can. If someone else has made a successful business using this business model, so can I. So self-efficacy can be developed really by seeing other people succeed. Then there's social persuasion. So encouragement and disencouragement really affect this self-efficacy. So encouragement is not as effective as at raising another self-efficacy as discouragement is at lowering it. So it's easy to get like discourage people and lower their self-efficacy, but increasing it is a bit more challenging. So positivity and productivity are related. Then, if you consider the psychological and physiological responses, then our mental and physical states impact how much we believe in our ability to perform. Take responsibility for being a survivor rather than a victim. Really take ownership of your situation, no matter what the situation is. And responsibility is not the same as accountability, because responsibility is the feeling of ownership. Accountability, on the other hand, refers to making, keeping, and managing agreements and expectations. So responsibility means the ability to respond. It implies owning your power and ability to choose your response. While accountability is other-oriented and focused on what happened in the past, responsibility is self-oriented and concentrates on the present. So how the mind actually reacts when this responsibility process is triggered. There are certain stages that can happen before we actually take responsibility, and those are denial, lay blame, justify, shame, obligation, and quit, meaning that we are not going to take responsibility for this matter. That's it. So responsibility process has this really nice graphic that explains it well, that what is it all about. So laying blame is holding others at fault for causing something. It's the initial interaction whenever something goes wrong. Like whenever something goes wrong, there can be this thought that, okay, who can I blame for this? It's not my fault. It's somebody else's fault. The blame is outside of me. So we tell ourselves that we are the helpless victims and that we ought to place responsibility for our issue on someone else. So we occupy the position of effect, and the object of our blame occupies the position of cause. So cause and effect. So we have to make a conscious choice to reject this, because that's not healthy, right? So every upset is an opportunity to learn. So if we notice that we are upset about something, it's really an opportunity to learn, but it really requires that we are aware that right now we are upset, or we are getting upset about something. So what happens if you can't find someone to blame? So then it's justify, using excuses for things being the way they are. We tell ourselves the stories that justify why we have the problem. We blame circumstances instead of people. So whether it's the weather, it's the economy, it's the organizational culture, government, crummy tools, ineffective processes, or management. So we see ourselves in the position of the effect and the circumstances in the position of cause. So what can we do to avoid this? So we can become vitally aware of stories we are telling ourselves. So it's pretty much the BS that we sometimes might tell ourselves. So when we realize this, we usually choose to stop justifying that problem. Then shame means that we lay blame onto oneself, which is often felt as guilt. Oh no, why did I do this? Why did I make this investment? Why did I do this or that, or this decision, and so on? So it occurs when we stop externalizing our problems and we see ourselves in both positions of cause and effect, but not in a healthy and resourceful way. So how can we actually get out of shame? So we realize that we are blaming ourselves. So we make a new choice. We stop laying blame on ourselves. So we won't solve the problem for that mental state. We will only cope. So shame definitely doesn't feel good. And if we just understand and emphasize that taking responsibility feels good because it means that we take the ownership. Then we can actually avoid this same trap. So the sooner you get off same, the better. Then there's obligation, so doing what you should or have to instead of what you want to. So let's say that we really have some annoying reports, let's say tax reports or some kind of inventory reports or something that we don't find pleasant to do and we just have to do those. So what is the mental state that we have when we actually complete those reports? So the mental state of feeling trapped, the feeling that you have no choice. I have to, but I don't want to. This conflict builds stress and anxiety, so it stops us from taking actual ownership and experiencing responsibility. So first thing is that we refuse to feel trapped. The more aware we become of our perceptions of cause and effect, the more we'll be able to help ourselves. And if we consider that, we just have to do these reports and so on. But that pretty much like sucks the joy out of it. So if we instead consider that, we have these reports in front of us that need to be done. So let's just I do these reports because I want to, and when I want it, it's possible for me to actually get enjoyment in doing those reports. Then quit. Just giving up to avoid the pain of shame and the burden of obligation. So we think we have parked the problems, but it's just this. This is not the solution, right? Quitting is not a solution in this case because it's just a temporary hold. So it will return, and it is costing us mental and emotional energy. So it's pretty much waste of energy if we choose to do this and avoid the whole issue. So someday I'll deal with that, but not now. So it's much better if we actually confront it directly and with compassion. So we ask ourselves that what new truth or insight must I get to know what I want and have it. So by doing this, our mind cooperates and it pretty much like propels us towards responsibility, where we are better able to think clearly and creatively, and opportunities begin to flow. Then we have denial, ignoring the whole thing. So it's easier to spot in others than in ourselves. So one of the top 5 reasons why we fail is because we just didn't see it coming. So be willing to accept the consequences of ignorance completely. Intentionally choose your purpose, direction, and source of fulfillment in life. So accept it as an outcome of your choices. That's what responsibility is. The willingness to have the consequences of our choice. So responsibility is owning our ability and power to create, choose, and attract. So choose means that we have the power and ability to know and express our wants and desires through preferences and through identifying options or choices. Creating means the cause to come into being. It involves multiple choices over time. And attract means to draw to you by appealing to the emotions or senses. So what we attract is in our control. So 3 keys to responsibility. Number 1 is to, first of all, the intention. Okay, we want to operate from a place of responsibility. So this is a determination to find a solution, a commitment to doing so, and a desire to lead ourselves to freedom, autonomy, and power. And number 2 is awareness of our mental state. So awareness causes us to notice our mental state when we are upset, to make a conscious choice about whether we operate from that mental state. So when we are disturbed, awareness encourages us to become aware of our mental state so that we may decide whether or not to act from that mental state. So it's important that we actually lead ourselves first. So our capacities to inspire others to practice responsibility completely rests on how well we have done it on our own lives. So only when self-applied, the responsibility process operates. So it is a self-leadership tool. So you can only increase your levels of autonomy, control, and choice by applying it to yourself. by applying yourself. So responsibility process is intended to help us identify the genuine issue at hand and get ourselves to a position where we can address it. So it's all about self-leadership. The responsibility process, it's a horrible management tool if you're managing other people. It's all about what you actually notice in yourself. So benefits of taking responsibility is that you have the opportunity to develop rather than just get by with issues. So the three ultimate advantages are freedom, power, and choice are really within our grasp. So we change the way we feel about situations and how we encounter like difficult scenarios when we get upset or anxiety. So if we get upset or are feeling these levels of anxiety, it's all about what we can do to handle the situation. So we can actually talk about the responsibility to process to others. So what I'm doing in my company is that every employee in my company has to learn this process. So that's number one thing that we teach to our employees, and it's also one of our core values. So it makes things so much easier when people, your team members, your like business partners, your like JV partners or whatever who understand this process, because then you can avoid all these different scenarios when something goes wrong and it kind of creates this challenging situation. So don't beat yourself up for being a human and celebrate wins. So it's all about making succeeding, celebrating these small wins. And win doesn't mean that it has to be a life-changing. No, just first of all, if you just learn an ability and you actually notice that, okay, now I'm getting upset about something, that's actually a huge win. So start from there and then proceed. If you like this topic, then hit a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. And we actually have a closed group where we discuss these topics. So if you want to be added to the group, then just comment group and we will add you there. See you at the group.